Welcome back to Show and Tell. I'm Billie. Today I'm going to, of course, talk about my own knitting, my acquisitions in recent days, both things that I got at Vogue Knitting Live and a little surprise that I got in the mail, which I alluded to last time. And I'm also going to add on at the end a bunch of stuff that I picked up at VKL. I'll walk you through some of the cards from places and discount codes and so forth. But I do want to jump right in. I think there's a fair amount of ground to cover. You know, I don't always have a lot of progress. I'm leading a pretty busy life. I'm teaching knitting to kids and to adults and trying to get to museums and doctor's appointments. But I do want to share what I've been knitting. So let me grab the first thing I've been knitting on. This is called something like Easy Charming Jumper or something. I'll put the name on the screen. So you might remember that I had knit part of the front, part of the back, did a provisional cast on so I can knit my ribbing down. I have designated this the front because I like the way it's pooling better. I'll save the uglier pooling for the back of the sweater. So at Vogue Knitting, I was looking for a contrast color because I think now you will be able to see this solid color. It's going to step up in an Art Deco pattern. And I really was shopping around for something that would be in this darker shade. And then I thought I might have turned this upside down and done the steps in this and the darker shade in the bottom. I hope this isn't confusing to you, but I decided since this will be darker overall than this, I wanted the darker part enveloping my hips as opposed to my shoulders. So long story short, I found this color. I found this color on Friday night at VKL. It's Knitting for Olive, 100% extra fine merino. The colorway is artichoke purple, and they say 250 meters to 50 grams, supposed to give you 28 stitches to 10 centimeters on a 3mm needle. Well, guess what? I'm not using a 3mm needle. I'm using a US 7. I don't know how many millimeters that is, but probably 4 or 5, I don't know. I can check that and write it for you. So because the first yarn that I was using has quite a bit of drape to it, I really struggled hard to match up something that would be lightweight. You can see this is pretty fine. Because the main part of the sweater is knit with 2 strands of a lace weight alpaca and silk blend. So these combined are really thinner than fingering weight. And I think that this Knitting for Olive seemed to be kind of in the zone. Okay, on the top are the 2 strands held together. On the bottom is the single strand of merino. So I think you can see they're kind of equivalent. And when I started to knit with it, I felt like it was behaving very similarly to the alpaca, the size of the stitches. You know, I didn't want there to be any puckering along here or along here. So I think I hit it just right by chance. I did continue to look around for purple. I was driving myself nuts. I went into so many booths at VKL to ask them, do you have something lighter than fingering? A lot of companies don't make lace weight, or they don't bring it to the shows because there's not enough demand for it. I would have taken 2 strands of some other lace weight and held them together, but to find a fingering that's really like a lightweight fingering, it was kind of a stroke of luck. Knitting for Olive tends to have a very vast color palette, but they didn't have anything in the purple range. But this was such a good match. I thought, you know, it was probably meant to be, so I decided to go with it. And I think it's looking a little bit nicer than I was expecting. So that's some progress on this. The other sweater that I'm working on, I nicknamed it the Sock Monkey sweater, but it's really called Knitted for Ski-ing. There's a hyphen in ski-ing, which is why I said it like that. If you've watched my podcast before, you may remember that I had run out of this ivory colored yarn. And when I went back to the yarn shop, they said to me, oh, Cascade Heritage, usually the dye lots are very similar from one to the next in the whites and the blacks, so shouldn't be a problem. And I bought another skein of snow from them. Last time when I showed it, I didn't have a full skein to compare it to. I do now. I think it will be very clear. I think you can see the difference between these 2 colors, right? This is what the yarn shop sold me. I came home and I knit with it. Can you see the difference between this and this? Well, I could, and it bothered me a lot. So I described to you that I went on Ravelry and I searched for people who had in their stash Heritage Cascade snow. And there was a limited number of those people. And then I refined it to who had dye lot 16. And I reached out to all of those people, regardless of whether they said that they were willing to sell or not, because I figured they can always say no. But the default would have opted them into not selling. Long story short, I contacted people. I heard back from some, not all, and a couple of people were willing to sell me 1 skein, but one woman, Dina, had 3 skeins. It turned out later it was close to 3, but I said, I'll take them for sure, 100%. Whatever she charged, like, I was happy to pay it. Shipping was a little bit pricey, but I went with it because I thought, I don't like how the other white looks. What am I going to do? So we didn't have a good way of exchanging funds. I ended up buying her a Starbucks gift card. That was her preference. And as soon as she got the card, as soon as she got the email from Starbucks announcing that the card had been received for her and was in her account, she promptly posted a package with these skeins in it and sent me the tracking number. It was expected to arrive on Friday. Friday came and went, I didn't get it. Saturday came and went, I didn't get it. We had a little bit of snow in New York, not enough to stop the post office. And I really don't think it was that bad in other parts of the country between her and me. And when I looked on the tracking, it had left Michigan and it was well on its way to New Jersey. But then we ran into Sunday, no mail delivery. Monday, Martin Luther King Day, federal holiday, no mail delivery. I think that the tracking said that it arrived finally Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Well, I didn't see anything from my doorman announcing that a package had arrived for me. But when I looked at the tracking on Wednesday and I saw it arrive the night before, I asked my doorman, well, do you have this package? Because you didn't email me to notify me, which is their practice. No, we never got anything. I am 100% sure, there's no doubt in my mind about it, that my zip code is the worst zip code in the United States. I've lived here for 48 years and I've had problems with them up the wazoo. I'm sick of recounting the nightmares. I thought, I don't want to call them on the phone. I'm not going to get any satisfaction. I finished a physical therapy appointment at about 8:45, and I was more than halfway to the post office. So I walked myself over to the post office. I got there before 9 o'clock. I didn't realize that they don't open until 9, because they used to open early enough for people to stop in on their way to work. The lobby was open, so I didn't have to wait outside in the cold, but all of the windows at each of the stations were shuttered. At 9 o'clock, they started opening up gradually, and I was standing in front of the inquiry window. So a woman opened the top half of the door and she said, I know you're waiting. I don't usually open until 10 o'clock, but I'll open for you since you're here. What can I do for you? So I told her that the tracking information says that this package was delivered, but it wasn't delivered to me. I don't know where it went. So she put in the tracking number and she found out that it was addressed incorrectly. And the building that it went to is a small apartment building with no doorman, no room for packages to be lying around. So I thought, oh God, who knows where this thing might be, lying in a gutter somewhere. So then she comes back from searching around in their back office and she says, it's your lucky day. And she presents me with this small padded envelope. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. I knew it was the yarn. And then I saw a small mistake had been made. And fortunately, the postal delivery person returned it to the station. And I guess they were just going to wait until I came along. But I was prepared to go around to several other big apartment buildings in my zip code nearby to see if maybe they had gotten it inadvertently and simply didn't know what to do with it. So anyway, there's a happy ending. Yay. This is one of the new skeins, which I wound by hand. And this was the skein that she sent me that's a partial skein. You can see the difference between how this is wound and how mine looks. Nevertheless, I need both in play because to do the white stripes, I needed 2 strands of white. And to do the black and white, I needed white from one other ball. In other words, I'm pulling from the center and the outside to get a double strand for those areas that are solid white. So this is sleeve number 1, and I have used the original white for these. This stripe is the original white and part of Dina's white that she sent me, and this is completely Dina's white. And because these are all the same dye lot, I think it looks right on. Now, there is a little section in here which I did not want to rip out that has the black mixed with the other white, the ugly white. If you have a keen eye, you can probably see it. But with all that's going on, and there's going to be those buttons, once these buttons are in place, I think there's going to be so much going on that your eye won't notice that there's a little stripe that has that ugly white in it. I decided not to rip out. I was a little bit fed up with this whole process by that time, but I'm back on track, so this sleeve is well underway. The back is completed. I probably will go back and rip out the side that has the ugly white. I'm just going to wait until everything else is done in case for some reason I don't have enough yarn. So that's my progress on this. So you saw acquisition number 1, that orchid color knitting for Olive, which I think I mentioned, they're calling this color artichoke purple. My second acquisition was these needle protectors, little flower pots. How cute are they? So I showed in my VKL wrap-up video the booth that had hundreds of different designs, butterflies and snails and cameras and all sorts of objects, but I chose that. I thought it looked a little vintagey. What do you think? And last but not least, my favorite button vendor, Dusty's Vintage Buttons. I showed the booth in my recap. Not so crowded Friday night, but on Saturday and Sunday, packed with people. On Friday night, while things were calm and I had nobody elbowing me, trying to wrestle in to get to the green buttons, I went hunting for a lot of the same green button. I'm working on a black cardigan. I haven't knit on it for quite a while, but I have been keeping my eye out for a green button. These are truly vintage. And I thought, very interesting. The pattern calls for, I think, 12 buttons down the front. Well, she didn't sell them. She didn't sell 12. She didn't sell 6 and 6. If I bought one card, it wouldn't have been enough. So I went ahead and I bought extras, which I think it's always a good idea to have some, especially, an unusual button like this you couldn't easily replace. If for some reason I lost a button or two, I'll have extras in reserve. So that's my third acquisition. But that's not all, because while I was sitting there watching all those fashion shows and recording them for you, in between some of the fashion shows, there were yarn tosses by different yarn vendors or miscellaneous people who were speaking, who threw out whatever yarn they felt like throwing out. So I caught this lovely yarn. It's called Ravelry by Fibra Natura. It's 207 yards, using size 3 to 5 US needles, or 3.25 to 3.75. You get 6 1/4 to 6 3/4 stitches per inch. It's 75% cotton, 16% extra fine merino wool, and 9% recycled cashmere. It feels very soft. The colorway is super pretty. They do have a name for it. It's color 110, called Vapeur. Like, I think vapor, probably. It's almost got like a denim-y look, dark and light. I thought it was really soft until I felt this other one that I think came in a goodie bag from Go Sadie, which is this new platform that was one of the sponsors of VKL this year. They put this into the bag. It seems like their signature color is purple, so everything they gave out was purple. This has all kinds of pretty colors, like purple and gray, little bit of blue, very pretty, and really soft, softer than the other one. This is from Earth Yarns. I've never knit with anything of theirs. It's their spiral grain, light worsted weight, 100% superwash, extra fine merino. I shouldn't make that face. 100% superwash, extra fine merino. It's a special, I think specially made skein because they taped over their regular tag. It's only 25 grams. And they say 21 to 24 stitches per 4 inches on a US 6 to 8 or 4 to 5 millimeter. I think this was in that same bag. Universal yarn. It's called Uni Merino Mini. The color is 108 sediment. 75% superwash merino wool and 25% nylon. This also feels nice and very squishy. 27 to 30 stitches to 4 inches on a size US 1 to 3, 2.25 to 3.25 millimeters. Not my color, but you know, I'm closing in on 2,000 subscribers. I think when I hit 2,000, I'll do a drawing for some of these things I might not want to keep for myself. And then the person who was making a presentation on Knit Companion, she threw out Miss Babs, and I caught not one but 2 of these, very pretty purple color. Yummy 2-ply is what it's called. And the colorway is Yowa Opal. And this one is Spiny Ava. Excuse me, I don't know what that means. Festive 2023, it says here. Spiny Avon. I'm not sure which is the color. I guess Avon, like the Avon River. I don't know. I tried to use this yarn, not because I wanted this color, but I tried to use this on here to see if the weight was matching up. Not quite, just a smidgen too thick. Okay, so I mentioned Go Sadie. They hosted one of the fashion shows and they gave out a purple tote bag. I don't know where that is, but inside the tote bag, besides some yarn, was this little plastic zipper pouch, a nail file, and a pen, all with their logo on it. And the fashion show they sponsored, they printed out all the different objects that the models wore and details about them. There was one thing that I made a note on. Universal Yarn, Fibre Natura Ravello, Cotton Merino Silk. There was a sweater called the Pierpont sweater, designed by Melissa Liebman. And as it turns out, this is the yarn that was used. But I like the sweater. It had a lot of pretty lace. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. So you might remember seeing that in the fashion show, and you can always go back. I'll leave a link up here and flip through and see if you can find that. The other fashion shows also printed out things. So this was the crochet fashion show, and on the back they listed all of the different patterns, the designers. Nothing of interest there for me, but it was nice that they gave that out. Then Shirley Payton, that was the first fashion show that I showed in that video, the Knitted Kingdoms. You know, she does a kingdom for lace, a kingdom for cables. a kingdom for color work. And her presentation is really, you know, very high class, if you will, beautiful. Listing each of the patterns and their designer in the order in which they were shown, of course. And then she included this card, which I'll hold here. I don't know if you'll be able to capture the QR code, but the Ultimate Knitwear Design Guide, 50% off. That's one of her books. Then there was another fashion show similar to the crochet, again with a list. Some of the designers were Suzanne Sommer, Julie Weissenberger, Romy Hill. Those are some names that might be familiar to you. Here was another fashion show sponsored by this yarn company. I think they're from Brazil. And in here, there was one sweater that I really liked how it hung on the model. So I made a note, good fit, and it's a free pattern. So you can take a look at the cinnamon sweater, cinnamon like the spice. The yarn is Bossa Nova, and I guess they don't attribute a specific designer. It's their like house design. Anyway, I just, sometimes the things are hanging on the models and I think they have perfect figures. Why isn't the sweater looking good on them? How's it going to look on me? But this one, the fit was spot on. So I may take a look at that since it's a free pattern and maybe give my own vintage spin to it at some point. I didn't show this in the previous podcast. When you register, they give you this pamphlet which has a schedule of all of the events for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thursday there's only a theater event, but they tell you when the cafe is open and when the various fashion shows are and the location of the events. So it's a really handy thing to have. They also show you a floor plan. It's on a few different floors of the hotel. So 4th floor, 5th floor, 6th floor, and 7th floor. The vendors, the marketplace, are really only on 2 floors, the 5th and the 6th. So they show you each booth, how it's laid out. And then there's an alphabetical listing by floor of all the different vendors who were there. Okay, now to all the cards that were handed to me or that I picked up. This is from Nina Chicago, which is a yarn shop in Chicago. There's a 20% off all regular price yarn and fabric code, VKL gets 20. So if you shop with them or if you go to their website, you can take advantage of that discount. There's also adventures, travel adventures, a crochet adventure with Tamara Kelly in Scotland in September, and Christmas and crochet with Tamara Kelly in Austria and Bavaria in December this year. I guess you could just Google that. 20% off through March 31st for, I don't know how you pronounce this, Creo Fuzz Family Yarns and Movers and Makers Yarns. Here's the QR codes. May 1st to 3rd, 2026 in Rosemont, Illinois, there's a Fiber and Fabric Craft Festival. Save the date. Oh, sorry. Besides 2026, May 2025 as well. May 7th to 9th this year. They say over 450 exhibitors, more than 125 networking and education opportunities. So if you're in that part of the country, check it out. Hudson Valley Textile Project, hvtextileproject.org. Sustainable and supportive. Oh, I talked to the guy in his booth. That was early on in the VKL video. So you can see some of what they're doing. And that's the website. If you're using Upland Fiber Co. yarn, they're encouraging you to follow and tag them on social media at Upland Fiber Co. and use hashtag Upland Fiber Co., hashtag COR, hashtag core worsted, and hashtag core fingering if you want to share with them. $10% off if you use this code on your next order. Alpaca 2025, all uppercase, from AmericanMadeAlpaca.com. It expires the end of this year. And it says this is a photo of Honey lying down and Melina, her daughter. Aren't they the sweetest? A big booth every year is Crazy for You. They are out of Leonardtown, Maryland. They carry a lot of brands. I think they're a Rowan flagship store. Their website is Crazy for You. You is spelled E-W-E. crazyforyou.com. Very helpful. So if you don't have a local yarn shop near you and you're ordering online, you do well to check out their website. One of the exhibitors there, who is not a vendor, not selling anything, but a charitable organization, is called Knitted Knockers. And they connect volunteer knitters and crocheters with breast cancer survivors to offer them free knockers. And here's their website, knittedknockers.org. So in here they tell you about materials to use, gauge, and actually a pattern. Round 1, knit to last stitch, turning rows, top piece, final step to finish the bottom piece, and the address of where to mail them to. But I'm sure if you go on their website, you would find this information as well. Over 50,000 mastectomies in the US each year. Prosthetics can be hot, expensive, and heavy. Knitted knockers are soft, light, huggable, and can be worn in a regular bra. They're distributed free to those who need them. So that could be a nice thing to do. Let me see what the yarn is. Soft, washable, non-wool yarn. On their website, they have a list of approved yarns. And things should be knit at a gauge of 6 stitches to 1 inch or 5 stitches to 1 inch. They give you directions both ways using US 5 needles. And last but not least, this card was in that Go Sadie gift bag. So there's 2 sides to the card, 2 different two different QR codes. This one is for designers, and this one is for makers. I'm not 100% sure of what their app is doing. It seems like it's a platform for people to meet and socialize, maybe isn't the right word, but share information and knowledge, knitting related or crochet related too, I think. So they were a big sponsor. Okay, that is it for this week. By the time I see you again, I hope that the sleeve will be finished, and I'm not sure if I want to work on second sleeve or if I want to do the front. Maybe I should do the front just to make sure that I don't run out of either the black or the white. Yeah, good idea? Weigh in, let me know what you think. I don't want to be caught on Sleeve Island, so there's that to factor in, but I think probably knitting the front will be fun because it has the white bands and maybe a little more thinking involved with shaping, armholes, and so forth. Anyway, because the temperature has really plummeted here, I'm trying to stay inside a lot, which means more time for knitting. See you next time.